Okay, so this is going to be a lesson aimed primarily at Key Stage 3 students, Year 7 and 8. We're going to be looking at some of the basics at writing for a purpose. And later down the road, this is going to be for your English language exams when you get to Year 11. So what I would like you to do, students, is to start by writing down the title, Perceptions of Teenagers. And if you want to, you can write down the objective, just so you've got it there in front of you. The objective is to know how to find the key ideas and perspectives in texts that we look at. So give yourself a minute or so to write that down and pause this video now so you can do that, and then unpause when you're ready to start again. Now, if the first time you're watching one of these videos, just remember you must make sure you pause the video every time I set you off on a task. Allow yourself to complete that task and then unpause when you're ready to begin. The good thing for you guys at home is that you'll be able to take as much time as you need to complete these tasks. However, I would try and recommend sticking to the timings that I give you, so you either don't do too much work or too little. The timings I give you are to prepare you, ultimately, when you guys get to Year 11, to stick to certain timings and deadlines that you may have. So, as starter task, what I would like you guys to do to start with is to have a look on the right hand side here. So I want you to write down the word teenager, okay, in the middle of your page, and then write down all of the words that you associate with the word teenager. So what I want you to do is pause the video now and give yourself a couple of minutes to do that. Okay, so hopefully you've got some words around the word teenager there, words that you would associate with a teenager. Interestingly, the words I would use would probably be completely different to the ones you use, and that's what we're going to dig into later on in this lesson. So have a little look at your words. Are they generally positive or negative? And I want you to write down why. Okay, so if they're more positive than negative, why do you think that is? Why do you think you've written down more positives than negative? And if you've written down more negative than positive, why have you written down more negative than positive words? Try and think of a reason behind that. Okay, so what kind of words did you guys manage to come up with? The ideas you would have come up with are going to be completely different to how society in general, especially as people get older, how they perceive teenagers. Why do you think that is? Give yourself a minute to think about that. Pause the video if you need to. Okay, so why is your perception of teenagers different from the rest of society? So a couple of ideas behind that you might have come up with. It's because you guys are either teenagers or you're going to be teenagers soon. So you're probably going to be biased in your point of view. You're going to generally probably think quite positively about teenagers. Perhaps some of the ideas you might have come up with would be words like fun, interesting, the future, creative, etc. However, if you were to take the perception or point of view of an older person, even like me, one of your teachers, I'm probably going to come up with more negative associations because that's my experience. So I might put words like difficult, aggravating, interesting, creative. There's going to be some similarities and some differences. Right, so I'm going to show you guys some images on the next few slides. And what I want you to do is, on your paper or whatever it is you're working on, PC, laptop, etc., I want you to write down a word or phrase or sentence that you think sums up or best represents what you see in that picture in regards to teenagers. So I'm going to ask you to pause each slide as I come to it, write down your ideas, then unpause and carry on. So just to recap, for each image, you're going to write down a word, phrase, or sentence on your whiteboard that you think sort of sums up what it is you're seeing. Okay, so first image. You write down words or phrases or sentences that best sums up this image in relation to how the teenager is being presented. Pause the video now and then unpause when you're ready to carry on. Okay, so the next image. Write down how you think teenager here is being presented to us. Pause the video. Okay. Next image. You're probably noticing a pattern. Okay, I think this one is certainly the most relatable for you guys, certainly for me. I think a couple of the other ones are certainly far more extreme examples of how teenagers might be perceived. So pause the video and write down what you think here. Okay, next image. How is this presenting teenagers? Although the image is slightly pixelated, this is somebody with acne or spots on their face. How is that presenting teenagers? Okay, next image. Try not to laugh. I know that this particular games console is very old, goes back to my generation, but this is just the image that I got off of Google Images. How are the teenagers being presented here? And lastly, although Facebook is not the social media of choice, probably for your generation, it symbolizes social media as a whole. So that could be anything: Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is you think. But what is this image depicting about teenagers here? Okay, so each of these images we would refer to as a text. Although nothing is written down, it's a piece of evidence that we're analysing, and therefore we call it a text. So in English, anything that we analyse, we refer to as a text, whether that be a poem, a story, an extract, or in this case, an image. So a text is anything that we can do the following with. Context. When was this image, or when was this particular thing created? Where is it from? Audience. Who is it aimed at? And purpose, what is the image or text trying to do or trying to achieve? So you may want to just jot that down now, because that's going to be what we focus on for the next part of the lesson. So context, audience, and purpose, and that is CAP as an acronym. So pause the video now and write that down if you need to. Right, so we're going to have a little look at this example together. You do not have to do them in order. It's just worth mentioning that. So you don't have to do CAP in the order it is. You can do it in any order. Right, so we're going to start with context, looking at this text here, so this image up here. So when was it created and where is it from? This image could have come from any medical website or teenage problem star website. It shows quite a painful case of acne or rash. And it could have also come from an article, sorry about the text, it's gone a bit funny here, about how bad teenagers are at looking after themselves. It looks as if it's quite modern, but it could be from any time period. Okay, audience, which is, sorry for the writing, it's gone a bit funny, guys. That's actually this bit down here. So who is our audience? So this could be aimed at anyone, and it really depends on the purpose behind it. So if it's to inform people about acne, it could be for teenagers or adults. If it's being used to show teenagers spotting unclean, it could just be for adults only. And then purpose. So what is this image trying to achieve? What is it trying to do? So the image is probably being used to show how bad acne can be for teenagers, as the spots look really painful and really sore. However, it could also be being used to suggest that all teenagers are spotty and unhygienic. So we've got two really different ideas coming from this, depending on where it was used. It could be used as really negative, almost bullying type image, or it could be used as an informative one to show people that this is perfectly normal, it's perfectly okay, it can be quite painful and unpleasant. Two very different ideas depending on where the image is found. That's something important to think about for you guys. Whenever you read a text, where it's come from can really help you understand the purpose behind it and what it's been used for. Okay, so your task. Although in this original lesson you'd be working in a group, that isn't obviously possible in the current circumstances. So this is an individual task you're going to be completing now. I want you to choose one of the images that we paused and looked at before. So what you'll need to do, you need to rewind this video and pause it on one of the images that you want to focus on most. So what you need to do is to choose one of the images and then complete a cap for that image. So when was this image created and where is it from? Who is the image potentially aimed at? And what is the image potentially trying to do? So I'll just quickly skim back through these images. Right, so pause the video on your image and give yourself enough time to complete that particular task. Okay, so what you should do now is turn your analysis into a paragraph. Now, obviously, if you submit this to your teacher, they can mark it for you and give you some ideas. Alternatively, you can post it in the comment section and I'll try and get back to you personally. So for your image, you should have written a paragraph covering the following: when it's created, where it's from, who is it potentially aimed at, and what is it trying to do. So for the next part, we're going to apply this same logic to an actual text now. Okay, it's the same process. The image was just to give you an easier way of doing that. So we're going to skip down to text and we're going to read this. So while we're reading this, we need to think about that CAP mentality: context, audience, and purpose. So here we go. I'm going to read through the text for you. Hoodies, louts, scum. How media demonizes teenagers. Research finds negative stories in the press make teenage boys frightened of each other. The portrayal of teenage boys as yobs in the media has made the boys wary of other teenagers, according to new research. Figures show more than half of the stories about teenage boys in national and regional newspapers in the past year, 4,374 out of 8,629, were about crime. The word most commonly used to describe them was yobs, 591 times, followed by thugs, 254 times, sick, 119 times, and feral, 96 times. Other terms often used include hoodie, louts, heartless, evil, frightening, scum, monsters, inhuman, and threatening. The research, commissioned by Women in Journalism, showed the best chance a teenager had of receiving a sympathetic coverage was if they died. We found some news coverage where teen boys were described in glowing terms: model student, angel, altar boy, or every mother's perfect son. The research concluded that sadly these were reserved for teenage boys who met a violent and untimely death. At the same time, a survey of nearly 1,000 teenage boys found 85% believed newspapers portray them in a bad light. They felt reality TV, with shows like The X Factor and Britain's Got Talent, portrayed them in a better light, with fewer than 20% believing they were being portrayed negatively. As a result of the negative press, 80% felt adults were more wary of them now they had been a year ago. However, the most striking finding, according to the research, was that many were now more wary of boys of their own age. It seems the endless diet of media reports about yobs and feral youths is making them fearful of other teens, it said. Nearly a third said they are always or often wary of teenage boys they don't know. The most popular reason for their wariness, cited by 51%, was media stories about teen boys, compared with 40% who said their wariness was based on their own or friends' bad experiences of other teens. Nearly three-quarters said they had changed their behaviour as a result of this wariness. The most common change, cited by 45.7%, was boys avoiding places where teenagers hung around. Others included dressing differently, 14.2%, and changing who they were seen with, 11.9%. For much of the press, there is no such thing as a good news story about teenagers, it added. Stories about sport and entertainment, which might have balanced other negative coverage, also took a critical line. Only 16% of stories about teens and entertainment were positive. Only 24% about teens and sport were positive. The research found that, for all the coverage of teenage issues, the boys' voices themselves were rarely heard in newspapers. Fewer than 1 in 10 articles about young people actually quoted young people or included their perspectives in the debate. Fiona Borden, the WIG committee member who presented the research at the British Library, said, "When a photo of a group of perfectly ordinary lads standing around wearing hooded tops has become visual shorthand for urban menace, or even the breakdown of society, it's clear teenage boys have a serious image problem. The Teen Boys brand has become toxic. Media coverage of boys is unrelentingly negative, focusing almost entirely on them as victims or perpetrators of crime. And our research shows that the media is helping make teenage boys more fearful of each other. Okay, so what I would like you guys to do now is to complete the following table. And this is going to help you answer that CAP analysis question, so the context, the audience, and the purpose behind it. So, what are the main ideas in this text? Try and summarize them in this column here. So, write down your ideas. What are the perspectives in the text? So, what is the point of view of the writer and the people they're making reference to? And then lastly, how does the writer convey these ideas? So, what techniques are they using? What methods are they using to try and get that across? So I'm going to help you a little bit with that now. I'm just going to pause this video and I'll resume in a second. So pause this video, write down your ideas and answers, and then we're going to go through some of these together. Okay, so little additional help here if you're struggling. So what are the ideas in the text? I'm just going to go through, I'm going to highlight a few ideas that you can use yourself. So what are the main ideas in this text? I think if we look at the heading, that's going to give us a really good indication. So the heading is probably the most important one and the easiest one to spot. Hoodies lout scum, how media demonizes teenagers. So clearly this article is trying to show us how the media is demonizing teenagers. So what other ideas are being shown to us that back that up? So the portrayal of teenage boys as yobs in the media has made boys wary of other teenagers. That's one of the key ideas that pops up a few times. Sorry about that. So the other thing we can look at perhaps is all these facts and statistics about the words that are referred to them: sick, thugs, feral, hoodie, louts, evil. That also shows us the main idea behind it, but it also shows us the perspective of the writer. It clearly shows us that the writer thinks that boys are being demonized by the media through the use of these unpleasant words. And they even give us the facts and statistics, which would fall into how the writer conveys these ideas. So these are, in fact, here, the methods. I'm going to highlight them in green. So we've got facts and statistics here, very specific number of times they're being referred to like that. So what other strategies is the writer using? So the writer uses expert opinion quite a lot. You look here, we found some news coverage. That's an expert talking there. They felt reality TV. They use this a lot, so they're using other people to put their own ideas quite a lot. Have a little think about that. How does that help their argument if they're using other people's ideas to come up with that? Okay, so just a couple of ideas to help you get going. Hopefully you find a lot more yourself. So what's your view? Oh, actually, sorry, before that. What's your view? Hopefully you've taken the article apart now. And I mean by that, you've annotated it and you've written lots of ideas for each of those columns. So now we need to respond to the article. So let's look at the next part. Teenage boys are badly represented in the media because they are all bad. That is our statement, quite a sweeping statement. You may well have heard an older person in society say something similar. So you need to do the following: state whether or not you agree with this statement and give your full reasons why. You may use quotes from the article to back up any points that you make and offer your detailed opinion. So you are now going to write your own argument against that statement, and you're going to use this article to do that. So hopefully you've gone through, I've highlighted a few examples here for you, but you can use these examples to help support your own point of view now. Obviously you can't copy exactly unless you're quoting the person. So you can't say the same thing they've said unless you acknowledge that it's come from another source. So you'd use quotation marks through that and say something like, another source has said. Just one last piece of advice to help you guys. Try and use as many powerful techniques as you can to get your point of view across. So try to offer a strong personal opinion. Try to use personal pronouns to show that it's your belief. So I believe that, I think that. Try to give some facts and statistics. You've got lots here that you can reference. And you can also give expert opinions to try and help your argument as well. Another useful technique that we don't see in this example that you may want to use what we call an anecdote, so your own personal experience to help support your argument. So that is your main task. Please probably spend around 15 minutes or 20 minutes creating that response and then send it to your teacher to be marked. Please put any questions you've got in the comment section, Hopefully you found me talking through the lesson helpful. Give it your best go, and I look forward to hearing some of your responses. Thank you.